We
Hey,
are live and also
and back.
recording.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yes. Oh my
Hopefully,
gosh. Did I cut out already?
a little bit. That's fine. You just said, "Oh my gosh," that's fine. I'm gonna try one thing over here, though.
Okay. The we would like to continue having guests on. We just have both been not on top of it, to be totally truthful, I think. I know I haven't. I don't know if you feel this way.
It cut out right before you said truthful.
Oh, I
Oops.
said both of us have we want to have guests on again. We just haven't been doing that. So
I guess that's what we've been waiting for too. It's easy to just. I feel like I've been. Well, we've been trying to get guests, and it's not that we're not finding people. It's just that we're also not. I know I'm not reaching out as often as I was.
yeah, same.
And it's just because things on the other side of the house have been taking precedence lately, which is unfortunate. But hey, c'est la vie, right? That's why we're doing this. So
Yeah.
I did hear an interesting stat though that might be reassuring.
Okay.
I was in Ottawa the last couple of days for CanSec, which is Canada Security. It's like a defense trade show kind of thing.
Ooh, sounds fancy.
Anyway, so it's like really like they try to make it sound fancy, but you can't pretty up the shit that they're showing you. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It's just like drones, missiles, vehicles, all their simulator. Like it's just full of all kinds of crazy stuff. It's wild.
Fun.
But you run into a lot of people. It's a small world, and I found a buddy of mine, Dave B. By the way, didn't plan on this coming up that way, but there's your shout out, buddy. He found out that we had the podcast, and yesterday on his drive back to Baggaville, he listened to one of the episodes, actually the one with Don McCooey.
Oh, nice.
So he really enjoyed it, which was awesome to hear. So I was really happy about that.
Fabulous.
But he asked how many episodes we had, and right now I said 80 something or whatever, because we were trying to find it on Spotify at the time. And he said it's something like if you make it past 20 episodes, you're in like an elite range of of podcasters. So I'm trying to find the number. I'm trying to find the numbers, and by elite range I mean like it's just in the scope of people and podcasts,
Yes.
and then people with more than 20 episodes. It's obviously a small number, but
yeah.
Anyway, so
20
I
is
look
a bit of
more.
it's a threshold, if you will. A little bit.
Yeah,
if you get
like,
past 20, you're serious.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And what did they say about restaurants? It's like
oh gosh,
the first however many years, most restaurants don't succeed, or most businesses don't succeed within the first. I think
it's a significant amount of time.
5 years.
5 years, I think.
Yeah.
Like, don't expect to do really great for 5 years.
If you get past 5 years, if you get past 5 years, your chances for success go much higher. So that's what I read into this is if we have more than 20 episodes, because we're part of a smaller group, our chances of success are higher. Like it's the next threshold. So now we got to beat the next metric to get that more, that next little bit. I don't know. That's kind of how I was seeing it, but
I like it.
I'll have to look into that to verify.
I do like having sort of a next goal, if you will, to look towards. And like us having started this, I don't want to say on a whim, but like without a specific vision in mind, I feel like this is good. This is good news.
I think what's interesting is there's a part of my brain that always wants to approach these things from a very process oriented kind of point of view. Like, what's the next step? How do we get there? Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
But I've always enjoyed the way we approach the show, where it's just kind of, people might look in and think it's laziness or
laissez-faire, if you will.
Laissez-faire kind of thing. But I just appreciate that our I don't like to say organic because it sounds a little too wishy-washy, but
Mm-hmm.
our free flow approach to it, I think, just allows us to scan the horizon for more opportunities and get to have a better choice of opportunities for what we want to do and where we want to go.
Totally. Yeah.
So that's awesome.
I like that. I like that stat. We'll roll with it.
Yeah, and it makes me get farther apart from that part of me that wants to just have the check mark, the checklist kind of thing to get to that way you can just enjoy where you're at, and then you can enjoy the process and let it take you where you're going instead of trying to drag it along with you, you know. It just feels
or force
a little bit more
it to be maybe something it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Yeah, like you might take it in the wrong direction and not realize it until it's almost too late.
So I read the headlines this morning. Trump has been what is it?
Convicted.
Is it convicted?
Yeah, so he's convicted. I only looked at it
of
briefly.
34 counts?
But it's all like
he's been found guilty on 34 counts of.
I don't know what the charges
I don't even know what the friggin' it's hush money trial. Like, what is that?
It's like paying people off. Do you remember Stormy Daniels, that whole thing?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Those kinds of things.
No, it's her.
Oh, just the Stormy Daniels case. Okay.
I'm sure there's others, but she's the hush money I think that they're talking about.
Okay.
What I don't know is what the sentence was, and I'm not sure that they're sentencing yet, but
yeah, like I feel like they separate. I don't foresee him going to jail. Is he going to go to jail? Maybe. It's going to be hard to win an election.
You're trying to. I was working on my lighting and the camera positioning and stuff because I kind of reoriented stuff in here to make it look a little less shitty. I looked. If I don't look washed out to you now, you should see what I looked like before. So to everyone who has the great fortune of watching this at some point, I look not washed out right now. But Donald Trump in prison will 100% look way worse.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
I don't know that he'll have access to spray tan in there, you know? I don't know what kind of commodity that is on the inside. I don't know if they sell that at the commissary.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he'll get some tips from Martha Stewart.
How many packs of ramen do you think a bottle of spray tan's worth?
I don't know. Is he going to be allowed to bring his hairpiece with him?
Actually, he might enjoy it. It'd be like a whole new economical challenge. Try to like turn it into his little empire. A little trade game.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
And that would actually be like for all those who don't believe that he's crazy, that would be like the surefire sign that he turns going to the inside as a business opportunity.
Yeah, it's like I could recruit so much more funds this way. It's amazing.
I feel really bad for the person who becomes his like personal assistant.
Unless they want to be.
Yeah, you know what? That's true. Shouldn't judge. Shouldn't judge.
You don't know what they want. We'll see. Know. We'll see how this unfolds. Right. But yeah, it was a headline I read this morning and I was like, ooh, whoa. I feel like this is kind of a big deal for him.
Yeah.
Because he's in the middle of running for the next presidential election. Like, and people are under the impression that he would win. So.
See, it's kind of interesting because when you think about it, we always like to talk about, I know in Canada we have our gripes, but I feel like it's worse in the States, and I have no basis for that. It's just probably the years of social media just lying to me. But anyway, I feel like it's much worse.
I'll follow up with the article I read yesterday on that subject. Okay. But yes, go.
Yeah, it's like I feel like the justice system and the prison system in the States is much worse than what we have in Canada. So that's where this is coming from.
I have heard this as well.
And so it's almost as if this is demonstrating how well it does work because he's still an innocent person. Well, he's now been convicted. But up until that moment, he was innocent until proven guilty.
He was, yes.
And he was able to continue, you know what I mean? So now people are going to talk about the court of public opinion and how the media will sway in the, crooked left and whatever, you know what I mean? So it's really hard to come to an honest and unbiased assessment of what it is, regardless of what your opinion is.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think a lot of people want to just be honest about it and say, yeah, he was found guilty of these things. So
yeah, they might just like, let's overlook. Is that what you mean?
I feel like a lot of people will, and probably in the right way. I mean, if you can separate the issue from the circumstances, they're kind of unrelated, but people will conflate the two.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's as big a deal because every other president just got away with whatever shit they were hiding. You know what I mean?
Fair.
So the question is going to be, do you care that, and this is probably more to the supporters. Anyone who is not a Trump supporter will obviously not say this, but can you separate what the transgression from what he's trying to do? Like he made a mistake, but he's not that person anymore, or he I don't know. He's also still denying it. So then, is there any remorse? Is there any actual culpability? So it's hard to know that, like, because the detractors would say, I think, he's this kind of person. He's just, you want him in office, you want him in charge, you want him with the codes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're all the fucking same. They're just hiding it differently. Mm-hmm. You can't not be a little bit of a sociopath and want to lead a fucking country.
I think that's part of the criteria.
Yeah, you got to be chasing something
like
crazy.
Unspoken, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
But, mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You have to be kind of like have the kind of wild self-confidence.
That's actually the more positive way of looking at it that I wasn't even thinking about. I like that one better.
I guess. Yeah, no, I feel like it's like a belief in yourself that I don't say most people don't have, but like the general public probably doesn't have. And they're like, no, I can do this. Mm-hmm. I can lead.
And that's an interesting point too, because that confidence is what's driving them to achieve their goals.
Mm-hmm.
But the goals is what I guess I was associating with that psychopathy, because it's like their goals, not their actual. Like they say it's in the best interest of whatever country they're in charge of, but it's hard to really quantify that. It's hard to demonstrate that.
Yeah.
But I like your outlook better. That's far more positive, and that's probably where we should be directing our thoughts, so that we're not
maybe, or maybe I just like rose-colored glasses. So emigration from Canada to the U.S. Hits a 10-year high. And wow. I'll read to you the numbers that they've got. So it's a census. I don't know if it's a U.S. census or if it's a Canadian census. I feel like I couldn't quite figure out. They got these particular figures from the American Community Survey, ACS, conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau. Okay, so it's a U.S.-based figure. So in 2022, the number of people who emigrated from Canada to the U.S. was 126,340, and that's an increase of 70% over the previous 10 years. So in 2012, the number was 75,752. So if they also have like a bit of a chart on here, which I thought was quite interesting, and like I'll show you, but it's probably hard to read. I could maybe share the picture somehow. Or
if you just show, like, just explain what the axes are and what the red and the blue is.
So there's a born in Canada, because people come to Canada and then emigrate to the U.S. We know this happens. So they're trying to decipher, like, is it people born in Canada, people born in the U.S., or people born elsewhere? So they broke down all that into this graph, basically.
Right.
And it last peaked in 2015. So 101,871 people total. And then they have the breakdown of Canadian born, U.S. born elsewhere. But I feel like 2022, like, we're off the charts over here. And, like, it's the highest amount of people born in Canada over the last 10 years that have moved. It's about the same of people born in the U.S., I guess, moving back. But then, again, born elsewhere is high as well. So it's really interesting to me to read that statistic when, like, I think of 2015. Is this, am I remembering this correctly? Is that the year Justin Trudeau was first elected? Or no?
I feel like it was close because Harambe died in 2016. And that's sort of one of my key milestones for the past, you know.
That's how you remember it?
That's the 2016 is when the world started going downhill fast. And you can
this, it was marked by this event. Harambe was the gorilla? No.
Harambe was the gorilla, at the Cleveland Zoo.
And then there was the lion.
Yeah, 2015. The lion was Cecil. And that was in Africa. A dentist shot him.
Was that before or after?
I feel like it was after, but I'm not sure. Either way, it was Harambe that did it, not Cecil. So Cecil was
hunted.
Yeah, Cecil was already the target. You know what I mean? Yeah. He was already going to die.
Right.
It was that person's intention to kill him.
Right.
It was not. It was not the zoo or the people's intention for any of those circumstances to come to pass. And then the big controversy after the fact was, did you really have to kill him? And they were concerned that the gorilla was going to fall on, or I don't even know if Harambe was a dude. I don't know. Whether or not Harambe would fall onto the child, and if the child would get crushed or maybe drowned because they were in a little water feature.
Yeah.
And then, but I mean, Harambe died, and then, boom, the world trajectory went downhill.
Everything changed.
Yeah, it really peaked in 2020.
Peaked. Well,
was that COVID?
Yeah. March 16th, 2020. Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, was sworn into cabinet November 4th, 2015.
Wow.
So a lot of I think people emigrated at that time. It maybe just coincidence. I don't know if it was because of the political situation, but yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. And I see, because I was going to say that was when isn't that when the government changed or opened up, I'll say the floodgates for lack of a better word, or just for an easy comparison, the immigration? Wasn't that when they upped their goals for how many people they wanted to have immigrate into Canada? Did that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think so.
But anyway, all that, it was
so the doors swung open and people were just shuffling around.
I feel like, isn't that when they were encouraging people to immigrate to Canada, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And so at the same time, would it have been the start of Canadians immigrating to the States?
Maybe, yeah.
Is this what you're suggesting or saying, or is that what the article said?
Well, the article was just checking out, they were just sharing the stats, basically, of when this happened, and I happened to notice that the last peak, because all the other years are like in the 70 to 80,000 range. Seems to be kind of an average, but 2015 was 101,000, and then 2022 was 126. Now, of course, they don't have the numbers for 2023 yet. So I don't know if it's going to dip down or go back up. Who knows, right?
It's interesting that you bring it up, though, because we always think, I remember when, 2015, 2016, everyone was complaining about, or at least there was a portion of the country that was complaining about the problems associated with bringing in this many people this fast. Because he had a number goal and a date goal, wasn't it? Like this many people by this time. But it's never like an insulated environment. So even then I realized, looking back, it never even occurred to me that, even though people are coming into the country, there's a certain number of people leaving the country at the same time. So those offset each other. Probably not as much as, our infrastructure would like, but it's still not as bad as just seeing only the numbers coming in.
Yeah. And I mean, we have we do, like, I think people have addressed the fact that the oh my gosh, not cost of living, the like shortage of housing has a lot to do with
Oh
how many,
yeah,
the
yeah,
influx of people and how our infrastructure can't keep up with the amount of people coming in. And so the cost of living goes up, or because there's so much demand and not enough supply, I guess.
yeah.
Uh,
Not enough supply and
economic,
command.
yeah. Economics is not my forte, as you could tell. But yeah, I found this so interesting. One person who moved to Florida who sells real estate, to other Canadians wanting to move to the US and like mostly Florida where he lives. Like he was saying it was because of politics and that's like what motivated him, but then they go on to say a lot of it has to do with the housing costs. So like they took into account the exchange rate and whatnot, and the average house in the US is $580,000, whereas in Canada it's $703. So that's like quite a huge difference. If you can sell your $700,000 average house in Canada and like go live in sunny Florida for a house that's 580, like why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
If it's
I
something
wonder.
you can do, right? It's
I was
obviously not available to everyone. But yeah.
I was talking to my buddy. He works in the States now. He went from the Air Force in Canada to some private companies in Canada, and now he's working in the States for one of these companies. But I was talking to him the other day because he's moving from San Francisco or somewhere down southwest up to Albany, New York.
Wow.
And
okay. Big move.
yeah, I was because one of the things that a lot of people, especially some people we know, were at least appear to be seriously considering moving to the States at one point. And we have a different. We like to compare Canada and the U.S. as if they're the same countries because we're North Americans, but they're very different cultures and very different structures
Oh my gosh, yeah.
to their societies. But I asked him to explain some of that because I wanted to know, the big things that we think about here. People are always concerned about healthcare and insurance and those kinds of things. But he made it sound like it was less of a concern than most people might imagine because you can pay into some of these healthcare plans and they're reasonably affordable, or I don't know. But yeah, so to have people down there who are well versed in all of these ins and outs make it a much easier transition for those Canadians
for sure,
who want to go down there, and then to realize that it's not as complicated as other Canadians would like to make it seem.
Or maybe also like we set our own selves up. Like we have these preconceived notions in our minds, all of us do, about how something operates and how difficult it might be to, for example, immigrate to the US or to any country. And that's like what holds people back from taking big steps or leaps or whatever in their life is like just their own selves.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
It's so true.
And this is a good example of that because you could be like, well, we have free healthcare. And the reality is we do have a lot of free healthcare. However, our healthcare system is flooded. And we hear about that all the time too. People waiting years for like organ
MRIs
transplants and simple
too.
procedure. Also simple procedures or like day surgery and things like that. And like the pandemic made it so much worse. So we're kind of
never mind the outlying communities that have access to even less than basic medicine.
Yeah, totally.
Which is a huge problem in this country.
So it makes you wonder, like, would you be willing to trade that for, like you said, paying into your own insurance and then having the coverage through that? And then I'm assuming the way it works is like you get a bill from the hospital, you process it through your insurance, like you would here for most dental or optometrist type things. And then they cover a large portion of it. I don't know. And then do you pay less in taxes because of it? You know what I mean? Like,
Ooh.
does that all just like balance out in the end? And we're just so used to this way.
Yeah, and I think people would make better decisions, and they'd be happier with their decisions if they approached their decision making from a different perspective. Because right now, the decision, you come to the fork in the road, option A or option B, and all you think about is the opportunity cost associated with leaving the status quo, which is probably option A, or making that transition to option B, which is going to cost you something. You're going to have to give up something. It's going to probably be uncomfortable or confusing, or, some form of stress or anxiety inducing, because it's going to be a new experience or something you're not completely familiar with. But rather than focusing on those things, I think we should pursue what we want more than we're concerned about what it might cost us. Because what we end up doing is, like, let's just use the Canada thing, for example, and Canada and the US could represent anything, but let's just say Canada is your current life, your current status of being, your state of being, your whole environment, and you see the United States as the other side of the fence, the grass is greener kind of thing. And let's say it's actually factually true, and being in the States is much better. It's factually true, but not very many people know it, because few people refuse to acknowledge, some of these things that are a different opinion than others. And so as a result, you don't say it out loud, but you refuse to acknowledge that you want to go astray from the crowd. You're worried about having to explain the decision you've made to all of these people, when all you want to do is, I just want to live in Florida for a few years so I can experience what this climate is like, and go fishing every fucking day or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Whatever.
Like, the reasons don't even have to be, people are like, is that a good enough reason? The reasons don't have to be these huge extravagant things. But and because of that misconception, we prevent ourselves from achieving a lot of the things that are going to bring us happiness, because they're so small.
Yeah.
But those are the things that we want, and we don't pursue them.
And also relying on the, like you said, the opinion of others is a big setback for a lot of people. Yeah.
So what I think the culmination of all that is, number one, pursue the things you want to pursue. And that's like full stop, because there's nothing else to go after that. I mean, I'm pretty confident that you could provide any sort of counter argument to that, and I could probably dismantle it, at least in a way that you would see the opportunity that's there, and not just all the things that it's going to cost you.
Like debate team.
Yeah. So like, so what are you actually giving up? Like, what are you actually losing when you move to the States? You're giving up maybe the people around you right now, because they're close to you physically, geographically. But is that really a thing? Because the whole world's connected. So not really a strong argument. And if they're that important, I'm confident you'll figure it out. You know what I mean? You're not just going to ignore people. And then, there's going to be some stressors, but you can acknowledge that it's not going to be a smooth transition. And then you can be okay when those speed bumps come along the way, and not let it ruin the entire journey. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have to have realistic expectations of whatever plan you have set out for yourself.
That is true. And what I think that also turns into is, you have to be willing to pay whatever price it is to get what you want. And it's almost always not as expensive, quote unquote, as you think it is. And in fact, it's usually costs you nothing. You're going to readjust.
If it's something you really want. Yeah. I would imagine.
And I think that, and the other thing is too, is you should just stop explaining yourself to people.
That too. Yeah.
Outside of conversational things, like, oh, getting a new car, cool. What are you getting? Like, oh, why'd you pick that one? That stuff doesn't matter. It's fucking irrelevant. It's like style, choice, and aesthetic. It has zero bearing on anything substantial in life. But entire lifestyle changes, moving these huge locations, career transitions, like real meaningful stuff like that, assuming it's a meaningful career transition, not like I'm going to be the assistant night manager at OK Tire. It's not exactly what I'm talking about.
Assistant to the regional manager.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think so. You should, all these people that are going, and here's the thing too. While you're pursuing these goals, you have to be okay with the fact that you might not get there. You might not achieve it. That is always a possibility. I'm confident that as long as you know, making positive progress, you'll be fine. It'll happen eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, you acknowledge that it might not happen, and that way, I don't know, like your world is never crumbling around you. It's always like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'm moving back to Canada. No big deal. I had a great time while I was down here. What a ride, you know? Like, why do we always kick ourselves in the pants when something bad happens in our lives, or we were wrong about something, you know? Especially when these things where you feel like you have to explain them to people, and now you got to come back with your tail between your legs. Well, just be confident in what you're doing, and be confident in whatever happens is not going to matter. You're going to be okay, and you'll
the outcome is still positive at the end of it all. Yeah.
There's really,
it's interesting you say that, because like we had like when we moved down here, we had a lot of, like, we had to talk about it and have conversations about, like, what does this look like. And then I feel like the ultimate thing that because I was the one resisting, the thing that ultimately won me over was, if ultimately, if this doesn't work out, can we come back? And it was like, yeah, we can do that. And then I was like, okay, I'm on board. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was just the fear of the unknown. What if, and I think ultimately that was what was holding me back. I was like, what if this sucks? And like, I don't want to be there. And I want, like, not that you would come back to the exact same place or thing or whatever, but just like the comfort of like where I'm from, more or less. And knowing that that was an option, I was like, okay, I'm on board. Like, it was truly I don't want to say embarrassing, but like, to realize that in myself, I was like, oh, I just needed to have a security blanket mentally.
Yeah.
More or less. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people go through that when you make big decisions like that. Like, I would compare it to even when you're, you know, a high school student trying to decide, where am I going to go for college or university? Like, you might limit yourself based on the parameters of other people's opinions. When you go to pick a job, that is a great example. When you meet, say you met somebody in a different province or town, and you're like, oh, well, we can't date, we can't be together. This is the love of my life, but my family doesn't live. You know what I mean? Like, there's all kinds of reasons, excuses that you could make up for yourself. Yeah,
there's always a reason not to. And I mean, so the classic example that I think, or the largest, or the most impactful example that people talk about is, they know they want to have kids, they just don't know when the timing is right. And then inevitably they'll come to the conclusion that it's never the right time. So and then you apply that to the rest of your life, and you realize, you know what, just none of like, okay, let's break this down. You're nervous about making a move to a different city. Why? Right? What are you afraid of? You're nervous, you know, like, you know, you got to make all these new connections. You're thinking about how you're going to manage yourself within the home, within the family, just on your own. Like, where's the stores? Where's the school? You're just thinking about the to-do list of all these kind of things. So it's not that you don't want to go. It's just like you're immediately overwhelmed by this list that you just put in your head, rather than going, oh man, we get to look at new houses. We get to, or like, you know, things that you don't like about your current situation. You're like, oh, sweet. This is a great opportunity for me to change. Boom. Now you get a fenced in yard. You know, it's something stupid like that, right? But
sure. Yeah. It's
just so easy to focus on the things that we're afraid of, because they pull harder on you. So you feel them stronger, and it's a more deliberate problem to solve, because now you have to take yourself out of that. Yeah. And put yourself in that positive mental framework and go, you know what?
Scary.
Like, what's the worst possible outcome? We get there. We live in a shitty home that's too small. We're crowded. We're cramped. Jordan hates his job. I'm unable to find work. I'm unhappy at home. He doesn't happy at work. No one's happy ever. Okay, now what? Well, clearly we have to make a change, transition. Your life's better again. Like, that's the worst. So you realize, like, there's really, you're just afraid of the things that you have to give up, and maybe a little overwhelmed about the things you have to do to get there. But those really aren't costs. Those are just you being pulled from the things that you want.
Yeah. They're kind of these like byproducts.
Yeah.
Byproducts.
You want to not have to do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
You want to not have to be stressed. You want to not have to wonder. Well, it's really easy if you just stop wondering and know that because you're a smart, capable person and Jordan's a smart, capable person, the likelihood of any of these negative things happening are already really low.
Yeah. And
the likelihood that you'll overcome any of these things, if they do happen, are extremely high. So this mutual exclusion zone of the bad things in the Venn diagram, and all of this overlap is you guys being fine, and you're worried about this shit, right? And that's how we live our lives.
Yeah.
We think we're being pulled in so many different directions, but we're not being pulled. You're just holding on to too many things.
That's very true. Yeah. And the brain can go all kinds of places too.
I was going to say that too about school. You mentioned talking about, figuring out, and I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I'm just going to go with it because I work from home. So I talked for people with people all day yesterday, and I was so happy about it. So I'm just really riding that high.
I'm just going to keep on talking.
Keep on rolling, baby.
Because you
listen to a lot of
went.
Limp Bizkit too.
Nice. You went. You, for example, did go away for university. Was that a big ominous thing when you made that decision, or were you just like, this is what it is?
So funny, eh?
I know it was like 20 years ago, but
no, it's interesting. I mean, I'm my emotional Rolodex is only growing, and it never gets old. I can't.
Like in a good way?
Yeah, it's a good way now. In the past, it would have been like bad memories or bad feelings, but I'm very much okay with just, feelings aren't indicative of anything unless they're present feelings about present happenings. Do you know what I mean?
I see.
Those feelings are telling you things. They're warning signs, or they're indicators of something. I'm in danger. This is really good, or whatever it is, right? If you're looking backwards or you're looking forwards, those feelings are completely made up. They're complete lies. You don't have to honor them. You don't have to listen to them. They're not real. So I can go back and look on all the things that upset me, and just what I'm trying to do now is and that's that part of that overlap thing I was talking about. Instead of just focusing on all the good things in my life and trying to remember those and ignoring all the bad stuff, I'm trying to just remember my life.
Both,
and like, things happen, but I mean, I can't enjoy anything without having not enjoyed something.
Sure.
So, there's like that, like, sort of poetic justice to it all, where, our experience is to suffer. We say suffer, but to suffer, it means to endure, right? So we endure emotions, good and bad.
Sorry,
but
hold that thought, because I'm picturing in the movie Inside Out, because it's such a lovely visual example of this, is Joy talks about this one memory where they won the championship and everybody's so excited for Riley, and she's like riding on their shoulders or whatever, and they're so happy, and sadness comes along and is like, that was also the day where this happened and that happened. And Joy was like, oh yeah, like,
thanks.
So she's like, oh, that's sad as heck. And then the memory, I think, turns sad or something like that. And she's like, what did you do? Like, and she starts freaking out.
Or she touched it or whatever.
Yeah. And she's like, no. And it's just like, you can't ignore that, because it doesn't, like, I've also been reading this book of emotions with the kids. And so they break it down to like, things will make you feel good or bad. And then feelings are attached to the good or bad.
Yeah. But you're deciding what's
tangents,
good or
more
bad.
or less. I mean, as a toddler, I don't know if deciding is the right word, but yes, as an adult, you start to decide. Yeah,
I will talk about the formed human brain when we discuss these things, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's a really hard one because
Mm-hmm.
we don't want to. It's hard to not acknowledge the inconvenience, the thing that's happening to you right now, and it's
Totally.
hard not to be, especially if it's a real problem. Like when you look back on those memories and you feel those things,
Mm-hmm.
and you put yourself back in those shoes, you're like, "There's no way I could have not thought this was bad, right?" But
Mm-hmm.
and it's not to say things are good or bad, and it's not to not feel the feelings, but it's not to let those things dictate what you do.
Totally.
So I like to look back on my memories and my experiences and appreciate and the real reason I'm able to do this now is because I realized recently that I had a lot of stuff that I just had not processed.
Like
You know what I
what do
mean?
they call it?
Like repressed memories or feelings or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
And yeah, I think, maybe it was just therapy brought me to a level of understanding and all of these things. I didn't plan this. This was not a deliberate thing, but I survived because all of these memories came flooding back and all of those emotions came flooding back. And instead of what I normally do, which is not entertain them,
Mm-hmm.
I
Ignore.
just sat with them. I just felt those feelings. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And because I let myself, let the feelings that were trying to tell me something. I was not letting them talk to me before. Now I let them talk to me, and now I can say, okay, fine, you're done. Like when when your kid's fucking yapping at you, and you're like,
And
what?
move past it. Yeah.
And they go hi, and then that's exactly what it is, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just
They just want acknowledgement. Yeah.
and we think to when we let ourselves have these negative emotions or feel these negative experiences that it's a bad thing and we're not allowed to feel them, like you said earlier. Like you're telling Lance, and it's okay to be angry, man. It's just how you're angry that matters. Being
Like
angry is
don't hit
fine.
your sister because you're
Yeah,
angry. You could just there's 1,000 ways to cool off. And like start with just like being like, I'm angry. I feel like that there's a lot to that as well. Just or I'm sad or whatever.
But what you're
Yeah.
really bad at is saying that and then stopping.
Yeah.
Because what you'll say is, oh, I'm angry. And then you'll try to figure out why you're angry. You'll try to figure out what made you angry. You'll try to figure out what the impacts of your anger are on the people around you. And you'll just start doing this. You'll intellectualize the whole problem instead of just sitting there and being angry. Just let yourself be angry. Don't don't judge it. Just let it be there.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able. So going all the way back to that is, I was both like blissfully stupid about going off to the army and going off to school.
Okay.
But also like painfully aware of, my connection with my friends and, the important people, and that it was going to be difficult for me to not be able to enjoy the experiences with all of them that I've come to enjoy over the last pile of years before I left. And I mean, my biggest thing was I didn't like to miss out. I like to share experiences with people. So no one likes to miss out, but
but then
a lot
you
of
realize you're gaining experiences at this place too that you wouldn't have otherwise had with different new people, which isn't a bad thing either.
When you're 18 years old, though, you don't have that presence of mind. You're all you're thinking about is, and this is what we're talking about. It's really hard in the moment.
Yes.
To just understand what you're feeling and why you're feeling it, and that's really that's what living in the moment is. It's not appreciating what you're doing. Like, oh, I'm so good at this baseball game, or you know what I mean. It's like, how do I feel right now? How do I feel right now about what's going on? And then just being okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that. Oh. I thought there was more to it, but
okay.
It's all good.
You were just worried about missing out when you went off to university.
Yeah, and so I had a lot of my own experiences, but I think I think what I disliked the most about sort of that whole journey for me was, I think I didn't have very many options. I thought I didn't have very many options. So I thought
okay.
then that my only real option to get a degree, to go to school and to get a job was to go into the army. You know
Okay.
what I mean? I
Okay.
never really sat down with myself and entertained those thoughts and those feelings and questioned why I felt that way or thought that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm only in my 30s now and learning that that's a thing to do
Mm-hmm.
regularly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's for nothing more than just dismantling, when you're in a bad mood or when things are bothering you,
Right.
because you get cut off in the street and you're pissed off, but the only reason why you're pissed off is because I don't know,
You wanted to
you
get
for some reason,
somewhere
or,
or
or, or this action was offensive to you for some reason, and
okay.
you're like, okay,
Yes.
why is this, like, really? I'm so upset about this. Like, I'm that important that he's not allowed. Whatever. I'll let bad
Yeah.
drivers be bad drivers, and I'm just going to continue listening to my music. It's hard to
Right.
do that, but yeah,
It's the goal.
it's the goal. It's the goal. It's hard. And here's the thing that goes hand in hand with that is just knowing, like, tell yourself it's okay to not be perfect, and let
Mm-hmm.
yourself make mistakes. So when you make a mistake, or when something unfortunate happens, or like you attribute it to yourself in a blameful way, like, I don't know why you're attributing blame. Blame doesn't solve anything.
Mm-hmm.
There's really no production. There's no value in going down that road, right? So
Mm-hmm.
why
Mm-hmm.
why bother? We think we're doing it
Yeah.
because if I do it, then the other people who are mad at me will know I'm mad at myself, and we can all be happy together.
We can move past it as a
Yeah,
group.
but
Mm-hmm.
what you're actually doing is pretending that other people are mad at you when no one gives a shit. And you're mad at yourself because you made a mistake, because you got shit on when you made mistakes when you were growing up,
Interesting.
or
Yeah.
in school or wherever. You know what I mean?
Are you repeating the patterns of behavior that you witnessed?
I, I mean,
Is that
it
what you
could be.
mean?
Maybe, sure. It could be patterns of behavior, but it could be just it's really the patterns of thinking that are the problem.
Ah,
And
yes.
they come
Okay.
out in behavioral ways, but
Yes, yes,
your
yes.
environment's a really big part of that too. So I don't know about um, that clear linkage always there. I'm sure it's there often,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but yeah. So just being okay with being the human that you are.
Mm-hmm.
We don't we are so forgiving and graceful with other people, and
Not
we have
ourselves.
no time for ourselves. It's
Yeah.
just the weirdest relationship. I have
I
no
don't know
idea
if
how
this
that
is
happens.
I don't know if this is a generational thing because I yeah, I'm not sure. Because I think as a whole, millennials are like the most uh invested in like therapy and like self-improvement. I don't know the statistics on it, so like I could be totally wrong about this,
Yeah.
but I'm under the impression that most people in and around our age are like looking to be better and improve and like figure out, why do I do this messed up thing and how do I stop doing that? Um all this to say, we have so much information now that
Yeah.
like
There's no reason not to there's no excuse to not get the help you need, or to support yourself the way you need to support yourself.
well, I don't know if I would even say excuse, but just like you have the opportunity to like look at yourself in a different way and like
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
and that's not something that our parents had for sure. Um
Do you
and
think it's
so
just
yeah,
access
I
to
don't know.
resources?
I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, cuz I think, or when the kids were really young, like when Anson was a baby, when Isla was like newborn kind of thing, I feel like I found myself, or I know I found myself wondering, what the hell did my parents do? Because I could just get up in the middle of the night and Google a problem,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And for them, it was like ask your sister or your mom or your aunt, and if nobody's encountered this, ask your doctor. And I think there was a lot more lack of access, I guess. And but there was also a lot of a different connection, type of connection,
lack of connectivity people.
Yeah. Anyways, that's just like one aspect. I feel like you're talking about like a lot of self-improvement and like looking at yourself and looking at the good and the bad things that have happened in your life. Like, I think this is a fairly new thing, right? Because like I talked to my mom about that, and she's like, "Oh, I did therapy years ago. I'm fine." And it was like, "Oh, so it's like a task that she has, like,
yeah.
She went and did that thing, and now it's done." And like for them, that's like they're happy with that, right? Whereas I feel like we see a lot more I don't know if opportunity, but like we take the time to like really.
We've been given more opportunity.
Yeah.
Thanks,
them.
Mom. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Dad listens to this. It's a total joke.
No, but like they're the ones that like they're the generation that kind of like started this, right? And
I mean,
and then Gen X increased the access to it, and now we're the ones looking for access to it. And it's like, I don't want to say our elders, but it's them that is supplying us with all the knowledge and information that they over the last say 30 years. Yes.
But them as a whole have done fuck all for us.
The professionals.
Yeah. Them as a whole have, and I mean, I'm not like I don't know what the political term is for what I'm about to say, but I'm not that. I fully acknowledge that the economic, financial, sociocultural landscape that we see today is not what our parents were raised in, and they and their parents fucked it all up.
It's weird how backwards it is. Sorry, now that we're talking about it, I'm just realizing like our emotional, like psychological state is like far improved. I think, I hope. Whereas
it's
like
because
the
we've all
actual
had emotional
physical our actual like socio-economic capitalist world is not far improved.
No. It's just
I would say it's gotten
crushing
very
us.
Yeah. Totally.
That's why everyone's going to therapy. It's because they've all broken. You know what I mean? Well, it's impossible to make it. And like we're doing well. Like we're by all rights, like we and our like circle of friends and stuff, we're all like the 1%ers. You know what I mean?
We're doing just fine. Yeah, I feel like
so well.
There's other places in the world where things are terrible right now. So
but
we're doing.
You always hear about those people too that have less and they're way happier. And I don't know if it's just like because they have access to less, they have less, which obviously
they're
sounds
not
really
spending
stupid
as much money.
Say out loud when they don't have it.
I don't know.
I don't know what
that.
But I like your thought about it. It's the idea that our landscape is so ugly that we have to turn inside to find beauty, but we have to like crawl through the mud to get there. And I think that's what all that self-help crap's all about. Yeah, looking for the diamond in the rough.
You just brought something up, like a metaphor that I used to connect with when I first started reading self-help books. And it was like the lotus flowers still bloom. So like every day lotus flowers come out of the mud and they bloom in the water, and then they go back. You know what I mean? So every day is like a new opportunity to refresh. So yes, we are metaphorically doing that a lot to just like get through, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's true. Like maybe that's what sleeping really is you're just like taking a rest, because this is a lot to experience. Like this is a huge huge problem for the human mind to conceive and just manage on a daily basis. That's why drugs exist. That's why alcohol exists. All these vices, you know what I mean? If you didn't have outlets, you'd fucking die. You'd shoot yourself in the head because fuck that.
Yeah.
Right?
People are like, I'm tapping out at this time.
100%. It's not worth it. So, and then the obviously the antithesis, the solution to all of this is when you get to that point where all of these things that are overwhelming you and bothering you, that there's not problems anymore because you realize your position in it all, and that you recognize that you know what, that those are other people's problems. I'm just not concerned about it anymore. You know,
right?
It's
learning
it's a
to
hard
manage
mindset, though.
Yeah.
Manage.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm surprised we haven't changed that word yet.
Manage? Why? Is it a problem?
Which seems pretty one-sided to me.
Oh, okay.
Managed.
Yeah.
What would you say otherwise? Like, what's the proper directed?
I don't know. Process? That would be like a gentler.
Because the obvious one is just personage, but that's not
right.
It's not appropriate. It's not. It doesn't inform you at all of what the word means.
I don't know.
It's too difficult these days.
I don't know. I think manage is fine. I'm sure future generations will be like, can you believe they use that?
I think future generations are going to undo a lot of this shit.
Yeah.
Just like
we're just in the middle of it.
Yeah.
We're in a
just
weird
biding
middle.
their time.
There was something. Oh, speaking of other generations, I have a boomerism.
I love it.
That I wrote a long time ago. Now, I guess. Have you ever heard somebody say, "What did he eat? Wheaties?" Or does he eat his Wheaties?
Did he eat his Wheaties? Yeah.
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 Yeah. Total
boomerism.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. Did he have his Wheaties? That's funny.
Yeah, Jordan said it one day, and we looked at each other. We were like, "This is a boomerism."
Uh-oh.
But did he eat his Wheaties?
But did you say it? I never said it, but I heard it a lot.
Yeah.
And Wheaties were a way bigger deal back when we were kids, and even before then than they are now.
They marketed the shit out of that cereal. They did a really good job. Yeah. For us to be like, ooh. So for those who don't know, it essentially means like you grew big and strong. You got all your nutrients. You got, you know what I mean?
This manufactured food is all you need.
Yeah.
I find the most boomerisms that I hear are like related to driving with kids in the car.
What do you mean?
Like I'll turn this car around, or don't make me stop the car. You know what I mean? Like that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just
you're like, I'm morphing into my parent.
Yeah, that was the largest interface I had with boomerisms was in the car.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, I was like, I should like maybe look into why Wheaties was such a big deal. I don't know.
I think it's just because they were, they were associated with athletes, right? They put Wheaties athletes on Wheaties boxes.
Oh, that's
so I think that was the connection. Like, if you eat your Wheaties, you're gonna be healthy and athletic and fit, and you'll look good and all that kind of shit. You know,
But then McDonald's is one of the official sponsors for the Olympics, and we all know they're not eating that to fortify themselves for
a really interesting point. You talk about the stressors of modern day living and our like the whole landscape of it today. Basically, we're living in one giant contradiction at all times. And that's just based on like just societal expectations. There's more in other categories, but our whole society is based on Christian fundamentals, right?
That's where it started, I suppose.
So like regardless
like
of how
morally and whatnot.
exactly, yeah, like morals and ethics and values and that kind of thing. Yet our entire society, preaches the exact opposite of that. Where religion says, abstinence and morality, or I don't know, all these other words. Basically deny.
Words.
Society is like, take, enjoy, consume.
Yeah.
So we're just being pitted between these two things. The things that we want to do because society's telling us to do it, and the things that we're either not doing or failing to not do. So we're either wanting those things, we're feeling bad about having those things because that's how we were raised. You know what I mean? So it's like, stop caring about what other people think and just start doing what you think is best for you without apologies.
That's the guilt that we all hold. Yeah.
Yeah. Guilt is a funny one too.
Yeah. Brene Brown has, I don't know if you've read or listened to any of her
know
stuff.
Most of her books. I've not read any of them yet though.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure.
She also has, I think, a couple
not quite
Netflix.
My cup of tea. The messaging, I think I'll appreciate, but I'm not sure I'll like
but like talks, if you will.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. We were talking. I couldn't hear you, so I was talking, and I didn't realize it's because you cut out. I thought you were just listening to me, and then you started talking. I was like, let's see if it didn't work. Okay. So could you please repeat what you said?
Oh, I just was saying that, like, her message is a lot about shame and guilt and how we hold onto that a lot. And I remember watching it and thinking, like, yeah, I am doing this. Like, what the hell? And that's a big. I wonder if that's a big part of it. Like, just the society we live in is very contradictory, and so perhaps the way that you grew up thinking, like, not be minimalistic, but like, don't ask for more things, or like, don't expect, I don't know, don't expect a car at 16 or things like that. And then suddenly you start succeeding in life and maybe gaining some like physical assets or whatever. Like, I wonder if that plays into our shame and guilt mentality as well. Like, oh, should I be succeeding? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you're being told that you're being greedy, essentially.
Yeah.
And now you're feeling bad for being greedy. But then you have that internal argument where you're like, well, you know what? I worked hard. I really earned this. I deserve to treat myself. Like, there's so many problems with that. We said earlier, like, just stop explaining yourself. No one, you don't have to explain you owe no one anything. You don't even owe Jordan an explanation.
And what I've realized in life is, like, nobody's looking for an explanation either.
That is so
like,
true.
Nobody's like, but why are you doing this? Because
of the shame and the guilt. You feel you need to justify yourself, so that your shame and guilt is related to how you assume they're thinking about you. So your justification is you defending yourself. And all of this is a problem you made up. And if you don't believe me, just ask Cassie. She'll listen to that and say, yeah, that's how Colin talks to me every day. Oh. I just explain myself all the time. But
you're like, but I'm doing it because of this. And she's like,
yeah.
Okay.
I'll explain why I'm explaining myself. I don't care, Colin. Fuck off. Like, I'm trying to read.
Yeah.
Anyway.
She's like, it's, I fully support you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that would be something Cassie would do, is just be like, yeah, I support you. Okay. And you're just still like probably trying to, oh, no, but this is why. And she's like, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very happy.
But you're not. Yeah. You're used to, like, one thing that's really interesting is, I know for me, I'll have been in a similar situation like that. And I will think I'll know what support would look like. And then Cassie would do exactly that. Because Cassie, she'd be like, yeah, I support you. And she'd tell me that, and she would know it, and she would believe it. And I would still be waiting for the visual. You know what I mean? Like a gesture, a hug, a facial expression, whatever, But that was a hard lesson to learn. Like, people don't, I mean, some people are very physical in their communication, and some people are very just verbal, and Cassie's very much a verbal communicator. If she's communicating verbally at all, her preference would be to just never talk, I think. And but yeah,
she's a great listener.
She fucking better be. Because I talk a lot.
No.
Yeah.
She is a great listener.
Sorry, just
and that I'm sure that she was able to see this early on, like Colin's gonna be the person who talks. And he's not gonna expect this from me, and that's great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's what they mean by opposites attract too. It's not like I'm outgoing, she's not outgoing, because I'm very much an introvert who is extroverted.
You need like a social recharge time. Yes.
Yeah, that's why
I get that.
Even when I'm at your place, like I go outside, I go for walks, I just take that time for myself whenever I feel like I need it, and then
recharge.
Whatever. It's all good. But it lets me be the person I want to be when I'm with people, right? Like I like being outgoing. I like being or trying to be funny and stuff. But I can't remember where I was going with that.
You're saying
the opposites attract thing.
Opposites attract, yeah.
It's not, it's that Cassie is it's that I need to process things out loud, and I need to talk through stuff just to understand it better. Because if I do it in my head, there's too many competing thoughts trying to wrestle for that real estate. So if I speak,
I see
I can only speak about one thought, right? And try as hard as I might to talk about many things at the same time, it can't happen. And so
even just writing them out too.
I do that a lot, often. Yeah,
because if you're writing it, like you're not, you might still have competing thoughts, but your focus is on the thing that you're.
And I find too, the worse, the more negative the thought is, the more productive it is to say it out loud or to write it down, because you kind of bring it to life, and then it's real, and then you can. But for me, if I don't acknowledge it,
or whatever,
if I don't bring it to life by writing it down or saying it out loud, then I'm not acknowledging it. Like I spoke earlier about, just experiencing those feelings that you have. So that's kind of my process to help me just move on. It could be just little shit too. It's really helpful. But yeah, and so that's how the opposites attract. I need to process things this way, and she processes things this way, and together we support each other. She listens super well. I talk a lot, and I'm not quite sure sometimes how it works in the opposite. Maybe I give her the space she needs to process things or whatever. I don't know. For her when she wants to talk about it out loud. But yeah, it's funny. It's just acknowledging that I think the connection that you're looking for is probably not what you think you're seeing when you're talking about your partner, and why you work so well together. It's not. I think it doesn't always have to be. I'll call that deep. It's not really deep. It's just like personality kind of thing, but like just below the surface kind of stuff would help. It helped me understand that Cassie not talking and not giving me that feedback, and it is not her not listening. It's not her not taking it in. It's not her not empathizing or whatever. Yeah, it's just her being her and me being me, and that's perfect. Everything's working out the way it should be. And if there's something she needs to say or she's compelled to say or do, she'll do it. But it's it was a really eye-opening understanding for me. It really just changed how I approached my communication with her, and I feel like it's a lot easier. There's a lot less in my head. Did I say the right thing? Was that a micro expression I saw on her face? You know what I mean? It's more
you're
like
not
was that a
reading into it?
You're making this up. Yeah. I simplified the problem by recognizing how it is that we're
how you communicate,
cooperating that way. Yeah. It was a big. It was a big. That was a big
styles moment. is huge. Yeah, for sure.
And I find communication styles are tricky because I don't like Cassie's communication style, as an example. Like I want to hear the feedback, you know what I mean? But I have to get comfortable with that's not her preference, and I'm not going to ask her to be or do something she's not, right? So that just goes to that's hand in hand with it's like your world is your world. You're the only one who can control how you feel or think or whatever, right? So the things that I control now is just being focused on understanding how Cassie is, so that I can appreciate that when I'm looking for support from her, I am getting it. It just, I might not see it right away, but it's there and it's persistent. And so I can fall back on that and feel better about it, you know?
Yes. Yeah. And what you're saying is, if I'm understanding correctly, is like,
yeah, I feel like I'm rambling.
No, you've been able to witness this over the course of many years. And so, kind of like what we were saying before, it's your perspective on the situation, taking the time to evaluate. I don't want to say what's really happening, because like this is all I don't want to say that's all perspective based,
no,
but like
I know what you're saying though.
More or less. Yeah, you're able to like look at it with fresh eyes, if you will.
Yeah, a more objective reality rather than the subjective one you create and then impose
that's
upon.
Full of feelings.
What is actually
Yes. Yeah. That we were kind of touching on earlier.
Stop listening to your your thoughts aren't thoughts. Like they're not. And we mentioned this in many episodes in the past. Like you are not your thoughts. You're not your feelings.
No.
It's just it's really hard to stop and be like, whoa.
These are things that happen.
Yeah.
When they happen. Yeah.
The greatest piece of advice that helped me understand all of this was, and this is a tricky one because I at least think it's a tricky one because it was tricky from my point of view to stop and continually remind myself of it before it became ingrained. But, I think a lot of the things that we hold internally that we're uncomfortable with are related to us inhibiting certain aspects of ourselves so that we can feel more comfortable in our environment. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's my experience. Where I feel like I need to tone down because I'm a big personality, especially if you don't know me. And I also learned about, I think we talked about resting asshole voice. Like I sound like a dick if you don't know me. If you don't know who I am, like I sound like a piece of shit especially if the first thing you hear out of my mouth is a witty comment or a sarcastic joke. I'm an acquired taste in that sense. But so I tried to make sure that I was not upsetting people or any. I mean, outside the course of
pacifying the expectation.
That's a good way. Yeah,
you have of how you will make other people feel.
Yes. And so I was behaving in a way I thought other people would prefer me to behave, which is suppressing certain of my own tendencies and characteristics and stuff like that. And I mean, there's a difference between being a polite member of society and then not allowing yourself to be yourself. So
your authentic self.
Yeah. And that's a hard one because it also means you have to acknowledge a lot of things you don't like about yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can't just acknowledge what you enjoy about yourself.
Yeah. You have to acknowledge the parts that are like, oh, I'm not really good at this, or
which is weird because we were just talking earlier about how it's so easy to forgive others and we're so hard on ourselves. But now when it comes to these kinds of exercises, we're like, oh yeah, I accept who I am. I'm great at this. Or we're lying to ourselves and we're saying, like I'm making bad decisions, but it's because I love myself. If you really loved yourself, you'd probably be eating better. You'd probably be exercising better. You'd probably be thinking better. You know what I mean? But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm trying to say is just recognize who you are, how you behave, and how you are supposed to be. That's like, you can't change really who you are. You could change certain things about the way you think and the way you approach stuff, but you are who you are. And so
I wanted to throw a monkey wrench in what you're saying right now. Just because
I love it. Let's do it.
No, I was just thinking but don't be an asshole.
I love impulsive thoughts. You are who you are, don't be an asshole? Or you're saying to yourself, don't be an asshole by saying this out loud?
No, yeah, be who you are, but also don't be an asshole, please.
That I feel like that
Yeah.
goes without saying, and that's what I mean by
Yeah,
a
yeah.
polite member of society.
Yes,
And you know what?
fair.
How much easier would it be to not be an asshole if while you're interacting with people, you weren't thinking about all the things about them you don't like, or the stupid
Oh.
decisions they make, or the dumb things they say, and you just
Mhm.
recognize that the person in front of you is who they are, and you are who you are, and you're just
That's
okay
hard
with
to
that.
do. Yeah,
It's
that's
so
very hard to do.
But that's what led me to the understanding that Cassie is who she is, and I was inadvertently, putting expectations on her, like not communicating
How
them to her,
dare
which is
you?
even worse. But like
Cassie's the best.
thinking that I'm looking for these
Sorry, I'm not
feedback
helping.
signals or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm you in a lot of conversations right now.
Oh,
I
okay.
totally get it.
Oh,
It's
okay.
I think it's a fun way to be too, because it kind of creates a little bit of a dynamic for the audience. Like, oh, what's going on
Devil's
here?
advocate.
Yeah,
A little bit.
it's great. But I mean, I think if people just take a moment to sit down and appreciate who they are, good and bad, all the good things about them, all the bad things about them, and then recognize that they are just things, and then you just, I hate the way this person does this. Why?
You
It's
can't
hard.
isolate
It's hard
a
to step
person.
back.
Yeah, into one, like maybe behavior or event or something like that, right? Because like you said, we are like so multifaceted that
and
you kind of
also
have to look at it as a big picture thing.
And to do that too also means that you're not allowing them to make mistakes, which internalizes that concept to you, which means you don't allow yourself to make mistakes, and so now you're mad at yourself every time you fuck up. So it's a vicious cycle, right? You just be okay to be yourself, let other people be themselves, and so much of this stuff just falls away. It's
so true.
We don't realize how negative we can be without thinking about it, and not even for the sake of other people, just for yourself. Like, this is all about enjoying your experience better, in my mind,
in life. Yes.
Yeah, because I honestly don't care about my job. I don't wake up every day because I want to fucking sit at my computer and do paperwork. That does not bring me joy. It brings me resources where I can experience things that bring me joy.
And there's other parts also, I think, of your work that are a little bit more fulfilling, we'll say. But
that's a really good point. Absolutely, yes.
There's maybe in the day-to-day, it's a bit mundane at times. Is that right to say?
There are very powerful positives, though. You're right. You're right. The day-to-day is really boring, but there are certain intangibles that are like, any of the guys or girls in uniform that are listening will understand. And I know people not in the military understand it too. You go to work and you work with these people for so long, and you deal with shitty customers or bad managers or whatever, and you're kind of like forged in a kiln of fucking bullshit. And it's just the same thing. We just get a little bit more bullshit and a little different bullshit. So those things really bring out the positives, which is it's really funny, right? Like, you hate them in the moment, but they're the things you really laugh about when you look back. It's just this perverse relationship with. But then why don't you just start laughing about it right away instead of waiting until you have to look back to find it funny?
Well,
just
it's that classic Andy quote. I wish there was a way of knowing you're in the good old days while you're still in them, right?
Yeah.
Is that how it goes?
So sad. Something like that. Yeah.
I had put a bunch of quotes on my bus for the kids, and that was one of them. And I put it purposefully like where the 7th and 8th graders are, because you don't have that kind of brain. Like, you don't think that way at that age, right? So it's kind of like hoping to encourage that kind of thinking. Who knows if they even ever read it? But it's one of the great quotes from the show, I think, right? Because it's true for everyone, everywhere, all the time. Yeah.
I think there's a few moments in that show where, a line was dropped and you went, ooh. And I feel like that was one of them, because we all do that. We are all chasing the next problem to solve, the chore we have to do, but no one's really chasing the next opportunity or the next experience in terms of making something positive happen. I feel like,
Right.
at least from my point of view, I get really sucked into that mundane aspect of day-to-day life, which is I got a lot of stuff to do on my daily checklist before I can really enjoy my day.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't, it's like, you don't want to let that stuff get you down, but sometimes it does. Yeah.
Well, and then how do you just, and maybe you're not meant to. Maybe you're not meant to like enjoy it always. Maybe
No,
that's
I don't
not the
think so.
case. You
No, I
just
feel
like
like
take it off the
you
chin
see,
and
yeah.
yeah.
You see that with kids more blatantly, where like some days they're just having a bad day. And like I said to Anson this week, because like there's one day where he was just like in this like saucy mood, and he just like everything was going wrong for him and nothing was his way, and he wanted to stay home and everything, blah blah blah. And like I kind of just looked at him and was like, listen, this morning sucked, let's accept that we didn't like this morning at all. I said the rest of your day doesn't have to be bad. I said you can decide if the rest of your day is going to be good or bad. And like he then seemed to make a conscious decision that the rest of his day wasn't going to be bad. And I was like, whoa, okay. I didn't think I'd get through to a 5-year-old about that. But like later on in the day, he's like, Mom, the rest of the day, because something, I think I was struggling with something. And he's like, the rest of your day doesn't have to be bad. And I was like, whoa. And then I asked him, I said, did you end up having an okay day? And he's like, my day was good. I was like,
That's
okay.
Cute. That's really cute.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel like this is comes back around to kind of what we were saying, like, initially about like feelings and whatnot, and like making a decision about, are you going to let this make you feel good? Or are you going to let this make you feel bad? Is like part of every little micro experience of your day, every day, all the time. So like, you could just sit in the monotony of your job and be upset about it, which probably a lot of people
do.
Are. Yeah.
I've done it many days.
Like, yeah, you're like, or you could be like, okay, it's boring. It is.
Yeah, but I'll just do it quick and get it done and whatever,
Hopefully that helps at least improve your own like mental sanity a little bit.
And the actual solution to that problem is like you could go as far as say, you know what, I don't like my job. It doesn't bring me joy. Okay, let's get a new job.
Sure.
Right? Like,
yeah.
why are you letting yourself suffer through something you're not enjoying? Right. Mm-hmm. And I know from my point of view, it's a really tough transition because I have financial obligations and responsibilities. So those are the things that I'd be trying to manage, not my own expectations, but my family's. Hey guys, I got to take a significant pay cut because I don't fucking like this job anymore. And I got to go do something else for my own well-being. And I need you to be okay with this monumental lifestyle change that's about to come down the pipe. It won't last forever, but we need this transition so I can have the experience that I want. But I mean, when have you ever heard anyone say anything like that? Right? No one talks that way. No one represents themselves, and no one wants to have uncomfortable conversations in order to get to where they want to go. And if you just stand up and have a backbone, you'd be way happier.
And I mean, those are real factors too, right?
They are real considerations. And then and then the decision, it's a decision though, and then you come to that conclusion and say, like I'm like 9 years away from a full pension. I make good money, I got good time off. The mundaneness of it all is boring, but it's also harmless. Like, you know what I mean? It's not intolerable. The people I work with aren't assholes. So on top of, while it's mundane, I don't have to deal with idiots every day. So
yeah,
it's not that
there's
bad.
There's a lot of pros. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm big into the pros and cons list for those kinds of things.
Well, and then I just throw away the cons list. Like, why focus on it? Right? It's not, unless I'm willing to.
But are you doing that thing where you learned in therapy where you got to just like sit in the feeling first before you like just push past it? Is that the same thing?
I mean, so I feel like they're two separate methods. Like, I feel like one is where you're
unrelated.
Well, the pros and cons list is you intellectualizing the problem.
Yes. Okay.
It's you trying to rationalize it so you can present it to someone to explain yourself, right? It has nothing else to do with anything else. If you want it to go, otherwise we're just impulsive assholes and we'll do whatever we want. And I think people should be more aware of their impulses and question whether or not they truly want that. Because if I wasn't prepared to make the job change, if I wasn't prepared to make that transition, if I didn't want to confront all of these obstacles that are in the way to get to where I'm going, I'm not going to keep the cons. I'm not going to focus on them. If I'm making the intentional decision to endure this job for these outcomes, I'm doing it for a positive reason. So I'm going to focus on the positives. And that way I can enjoy my experience without derailing, all my family's goals and desires and stuff like that. And without not honoring sort of those feelings. But I feel like if you're going to do the thing where you sit and you feel the feelings, you got to be careful, because I feel like the reason you're going to do that is because you want to know what the right decision is so that you can make that decision. I feel like most of our negative emotions are more or less a cognitive dissonance. You're thinking one thing but doing another. So so when you're anxious, say you're going to be late somewhere, you're doing one thing, which is you're rushing and speeding to get to where you're going, so you're already in like a really negative environment. But what you're really stressing about is the consequences and the outcome of you being late, which is trouble, a conversation, whatever. It's probably. But if you can bring yourself to a point and say, what does it matter? Oh, I'm going to be late. I'm going to get talked to. Okay, what happens when I get talked to? Nothing. I mean, I'm not going to let this one thing ruin my day. And so I try to reverse it as far back until I get to where I am now, and then let that
reverse engineer
thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Reverse engineering the
everything that you're concerned.
Yeah.
But if you accelerate the engineering and move forward to where the consequences have already taken place, and like you look back and on a time where you fucked up and you felt shame and guilt, but you're looking back on it now and you're like, oh, whatever. Why can't you just do that now? Why can't you just get to that point now? And the only reason why is because you're in it. You're in it. You're in it. You're not letting yourself. You're not actually letting yourself experience it. You're just being consumed by the experience. So you're not stepping back and going, man, this sucks. I fucked up. Oh, well, maybe I won't fuck up next time. I've done a lot of other things really good. I'm not going to let this ruin the rest of my fucking day. You know what I mean? And then I think this is something I'm leaning on a lot. But the perceived consequences, like say the bad thing does happen, whatever it is that you're stressed about, whatever it is you're worried about. Play out play out the negative scene, the negative consequences, and then you'll play it out. And maybe some uncomfortable conversations or whatever, I don't know. But ultimately, there is no real consequence. You just have to deal with someone else's opinions about expectations and shit like that. But ultimately, it doesn't assail you're physically, spiritually intact, and all you have to do is like let someone else pretend to care about something, but you're stepping back, going like, none of this matters. Okay, let's just pretend that for a second me being late wasn't a big deal. Can we just get to that point real quick, or whatever it is? We have this sense of importance about these things and what we're doing that doesn't need to be there.
It's very I feel like that's a profound kind of perspective on it, because some people may never even have that initial thought of like, this is why I'm upset, even.
Yeah, you alluded to it earlier though, and it's the real problem is people, they have to be at a point in their lives, and I know for me, I didn't get to that point intentionally. I happened upon it, and I'm really grateful that I did, because it made me start to think about these things in different ways, and I started challenging the problems that I was having and working through them. So I think if it's a deliberate process. A lot of us are on autopilot for so many things, so you're not seeing them anyway.
That's
right?
really good way of I don't want to say comparing it, but like placing it. Like it is.
It's not for people, because what we're saying, it can sound like there's people out there that just don't want to improve. They don't want to make their situation better. They don't want different circumstances, but they
I'm
might
sure
not
there
be
are
in a
those people
place.
too.
Of course.
But there's people who like genuinely just never even consider it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not part of any part of their world. And so I feel bad for those people, and that's why I like talking about this stuff so much, because I feel so much relief from all the things that I've kind of I started therapy in January, and it's been going really well. And I feel way different.
As it should.
Yeah, it's incredible, but it's work. It's deliberate, and it's not easy, because you have to want to deal with the shit you've been avoiding for so long. And then the real big thing for me,
unpack. Yeah,
is you have to be really okay with the earlier point I was talking about consequences, and they're really irrelevant, is because it only works if you really don't care what other people think about you. You have to be that confident and sure of yourself, which is nothing that I've ever felt before. So that part of me is growing, which is made it a lot easier for me to just like, this is, I recognize a lot of people, and especially a lot of people in our audience, are probably already there and have been for some time, but I just happen to, have ADHD and all kinds of other things. And also one of those people that I wasn't,
I'm not laughing at you. I just like the prospect of like realizing that all these things are compounding a little bit, right?
And they're compounding for everyone. Everyone's experience is as bad as everyone else's, because it's, in terms of the things that they're dealing with that are not wanted.
Right.
But the worst thing you've experienced is the worst thing you've experienced. So
yes.
What we often do is either, marginalize other people's experiences because they weren't as bad as ours. Or we marginalize our own experience because we think it's not as severe as others. But what we're end up doing is we're intellectualizing away our problems, and we're not focusing on what we're trying to do right then and there, which is just like, okay, it's the human experience. It's all you've got. Like, you're not walking away from this thing with anything you have at all. Not your body, not you know what I mean? So like, I like the idea that I'm able to focus more internally now. It's given me a lot more just calm. I'm able to, I grew up thinking, and by grow up, I mean, like, our schools tell us, like, the idea that you're trying to figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life in high school is absurd.
Yeah. And I wonder, I hope that a lot of that is changing, because like, I think we're seeing and recognizing that people don't stay in the same career paths for 25, 30 years anymore. Right. So I think it's kind of just like, hopefully follow your interest. If you're going to study post-secondary, study something that you actually like and enjoy and are good at. And like, I feel like that's going to serve you more than, I feel like before it was always like, I don't know. I feel like you'd get funneled easily into go be a doctor or a lawyer or like the big ticket.
Well, you're
you're
still facing that, because and that's like you mentioned earlier about going to school and stuff, and we automatically assume that kids are basically deciding to go to school, university or college, or trades, really.
Trades, yeah.
People don't deliberately go into entrepreneurship as often, I don't think.
Not at that age. I feel like it's so daunting.
I feel like the only way that this improves is dismantling our current education system, which was conceived and created to support a 40-hour work week. So when you break it all down and you realize that the way we're instructing and educating the next generation of our civilization is based off of bottom line production. You know what I mean?
Like
it's a little
antiquated
weird
system. Yeah.
It's like, we're now at such a young age indoctrinating children to focus in the wrong areas of their lives? How can they bring productive value, money to society rather than what can they give? If they chose to focus on what they can give, then they're going to enjoy it. It's going to mean something to them. They're going to eventually be able to monetize it some way. And then if people were honest with themselves, they would realize that the reason they're not chasing their own passions, the things that they want to do, the things that they want to give, is because, it would result in, less money, less opportunity, less experiences. So you're really trading a lot of what you could have to meet what you think other people expect of you. You get to a certain lifestyle, and you assume you're just going to stay there or keep going, right? But you don't know. Maybe at some point you get to that lifestyle and something changes and you're like, I don't like this anymore. I don't want to be here.
Or
and you want to go back down to here.
Company goes bankrupt.
Yeah.
And then,
you know what I mean?
Those things are rare, but yeah, there's all kinds of like situational things that could affect you that you might not be prepared for.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Well. And to that end, like, just trust yourself and know you'll be okay. And there's really not much bad that can come from it. I don't know, I'm on a pretty big...
Trust yourself. Everything's gonna be okay. I like that.
I didn't even do that on purpose.
There you go. Well, on that lovely note.
Yeah, I think so. This was a good one.
Yeah, we unpacked some stuff.
Next week, I'll tell you all about Olivia's recital that I'll be going to this weekend.
Oh my God, tonight. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm truly so excited for her.
Yeah. These are one of those things where, like, it's a trade-off. Like, I don't want to go because it's going to be a minute and a half. And I'm gonna be in the hundreds of dollars. And a half. Yeah.
In that minute and a half, you're gonna be like all consumed by her.
Yeah, I hope so. Because if my mind wanders, I'm gonna be real pissed at how much money I spent for that minute and a half, and then I didn't even pay attention to it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I noticed yesterday at baseball, so many parents like recording their kids going up to bat or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've been trying to do this thing where I'm trying to live in the moment and like enjoy the moment. Cause like, I don't want to record it and be like, oh, I can watch it later. Cause I feel like that dilutes the whole thing. You know what I mean? So I'm sure you'll see some of that at the recital too, where you're like, I don't know, maybe just my advice is just try and enjoy like just watching her. Cause I imagine that Olivia is going to be just like on fucking cloud 9. I'm like,
They did the dress rehearsal yesterday and Cassie got a video of it. And she was, I almost told her this. I said, why? She's one of the best ones out there. I think because she's been in the class. She's one of the longest in the class.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
And I was like, I almost said, hey, you're better. You're one of the best ones out there. And I just didn't want her to go and like, my dad said I'm better than you. So I said, oh, you're doing really good.
Yeah. You're like, kids. I have to just scale it back a little bit.
Because all they've been doing is immediately repeating things as soon as they get to school. Whatever they heard us last say that they thought was interesting or funny, they walk in the door.
Okay.
My dad. I'm like, oh God, we gotta let this bite us in the ass. So.
Yeah, just this is why I've stopped talking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been like a really North Korea communication policy in the house. Like,
sweet.
No, don't talk back. Don't say anything that could bite you in the ass. We do a lot of spelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We spell a lot of things. Yeah.
We can't write it out.
But they're starting to
William can read. No.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like,
problematic.
I'm realizing the writing is no longer an option. Like, hey. I'll be texting Jordan sometimes and he leans over my shoulder and he's like, oh, you said blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you can read my text messages. And he's like, yeah, say this to him. I'm like, okay. Anyway, sorry, we're getting away from it. But
yeah, we're getting away from leaving.
We will we'll catch up with all of you again next time. And then hopefully we'll have a guest who can maybe enlighten us as well.
And I mean, if we don't, it's okay too, because I think we're pretty awesome package too, and
they're
going to be quite content with that. So yeah, we're good. Either way.
Okay, sweet.
Bye.
Toodles.